Good morning, good afternoon, good and happy new year. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Al Hilton. I'll be your moderator for today's session. Also joining us today is Eyal Oz, Vice President of R&D at Evolven Software. Eyal, welcome.
Hi guys, it's great to be here.
In today's session, Eyal will be covering this year's roadmap for Evolven. We ask that you hold all your questions to the conclusion of our session. At the conclusion, should you have a question, please submit those questions via the question pane of the GoToMeeting dashboard. With that, Eyal, I'll turn it over to you.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. So in today's sessions, we are going to review our 2016 roadmap for the product. And this is actually a very exciting year for us at Evolven. As you all know, we launched our Evolven Analytics blended events like a year ago, and we see a lot of traction. So today in the agenda, I will first cover and do some review of the Evolven Analytics model. What is it all about? What are the main things that we are collecting? How do we do that? That will give you like a good understanding of where we are from a product point of view, what is the goal of the product from a technical point of view and analytics point of view. Then we are going to talk about our goals to 2016 from the product roadmap point of view, and then we'll discuss the detailed roadmap. At the end, we will go and do some focus on some specific capabilities, even some screenshots from a few features that are already in development and are presentable. So I will just start. So as you probably know, we launched the blended analytics model in Evolven about a year ago, and the blended analytics is actually for us in the R&D a very, very exciting architecture. We start with the old good Evolven changes that we all know. We collect all the changes from all the configuration elements, and on this year we are going to add all the other types of changes that we are planning to collect, like data changes, capacity changes, workload changes, and even code changes. These changes, we are collecting them because we say that these are the core of all the problems and all the issues, or most of the issues, in IT. In addition to these changes, we are collecting two additional data feeds. One of them is what we call the symptoms, which is all of your APM alerts, all of the log alerts that you might have from maybe Splunk product, all of the network issues that your product network monitoring network actually capture. These are the symptoms. On top of all of these, we have the IT context. IT context is a very important piece of our blended data sources strategy, because it actually gives a context to everything that we do and every change that we collect. On this, we are actually collecting a lot of information from deployment automation tools like Nolio, Chef, Puppet, and others, service desk, all the major service desks in the market, and we will discuss what is our roadmap later on, what is our roadmap in order to support this. In order to support all these symptoms and IT context feeds, we are actually developing new integrations with the Evolven server. On each of these integrations, we are capturing the most interesting data from a new deployment or a new alert point of view. We put it and we correlate this with the changes, and obviously once we correlate that, we need to do some major work of noise reduction, clustering, and normalization of the data. as you all know, in order to find the real problem, we need to cleanse the data and actually make the data very, very clear for us to be able to drag and draw some interesting insights on this data to our customers. After we have the data cleansed, we move it into the analytics engine. Now, in the analytics engine, we actually developed quite a few new engines in the last year. We have our pattern recognition engine. We had some anomaly detection engine, and we're adding a few during the year. We have time anomaly detection. We have configuration anomaly detection. I will discuss this later on when we will get to the specific features. Some very interesting analytic engine is the risk dimensions and calculation of risk, because the entire Evolven blended analytics model revolves around identifying what is riskier and what is the change that is actually causing the problem. In order to do that, we build a very detailed engine that actually give risk to specific granular changes. And in order to do that, we have built actually quite a few of these, actually two of these engines. We will discuss later in the roadmap slide exactly what are the two and how we distinguish between them. Then we have the root cause analysis. Obviously, that's the holy grail of everything that we are trying to do here. And the goal is very simple. The goal is when you have an issue, an alert that is coming from your APM tool, we are just activating the Evolven engine, analytics engine, and then we find what are the right changes, the changes that actually cause these issues. In addition to that, we have our knowledge base, and we are going to add some new exciting capabilities like IT Crowd Index. I will get that later. And obviously, on top of everything, we have a dashboard technology, plus our own UI that had a lot of updates into it in order to support all this new analytics model. Now, taking all this, as you can see, it's quite a lot of moving parts. And in order to help us actually understand where we are in the roadmap, you will see that we distinguished between specific lines of or types of updates and features that we are developing. Again, we will discuss this a little bit later. Let's go to our 2016 plan goals. And our main goal is actually very simple. Our main goal in 2016 is to increase the level of the automation and ease of use of the product. So customers, when they come to Evolven, will find all the information that they need, as they do today, but this time they will find the right data in a very easy way. We know that Evolven is a great product, has a lot of tons of insightful data inside it, but we need a better way of getting to the data, getting to the data fast, and actually be able to give maximum results in minimum time. One of the first challenges that when you are building a tool that needs to do root cause analysis and help customers actually identify where we are and what are the problems, is to increase the accuracy of your analysis. And in that, we are investing a lot of work using our data scientist, a PhD called Bustian, a PhD that actually wrote 2 books on machine learning, and actually working on building the new risk calculation and correlation engines inside the product. We will cover again in more details what exactly we're doing on that on the next slides. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the product today is actually being able to clean the data that we present and bring it to the highest quality that is possible. We did a lot of work in our coming release, the 5.6 release, in order to do that. I will cover that in the next slide as well, but this is one of our major goals. The third one is obvious. You all know when you're looking at IT products and you see some data and actually you're puzzled of what they actually mean. And in order to do that, we really want to make our analysis result much more easier to understand. We are going to bring some new engines to give insightful insights, so people not only will see the right data, but will help them in understanding what this data actually means. What is the real problem behind the fact that they have, I don't know, a few inconsistencies here with a few changes there. And in order to help and streamline the product itself, and help customers actually streamline the process of using the product, we are going to rearrange the product interface in order to actually improve the use case flows of all known use case flows. You all know them. It's like consistency, it's the ability to do problem analytics, it's the ability to do incident investigation, it's the ability to actually look at the release validation process that you have. So all this is going to happen during 2016. Now, as you can see, we have like quite bold goals, and we have a lot of work to do on these. So we actually took our plan, 2016 plan, and plan to have 3 releases this year. One of them is coming up shortly in January, and the other 2 are coming in the rest of the year. And our plan is to take and build each of these 3 big releases, and in between these releases, release a number of minor releases, which will be focused obviously on bug fixes and adding some coverage and integration support in between. We are, as an R&D organization, actually running in parallel in a few threads. We have the main product development, and we have the integration and coverage threads that are running much faster. So in order to give maximum value to customers as soon as we can, we are releasing the coverage and integration and new integrations that we are developing on top of existing product, and customers do not need to wait to the next big release in order to benefit from the new integration and coverage that we have just developed. Now let's look at the roadmap itself. Now I would like everyone to focus on the top line, because there are a lot of details on this slide, and I would like everyone to actually understand how are we building our plan. This year we took all of the features and all of the capabilities that we wanted to do and actually separate them into 5 different line of development. The first one is what we call data science. Data science is everything that is related to actually building new engines, developing new algorithms, developing new capabilities in the product that will help correlation, that will help data cleansing, that will give all the features and capabilities that take the data and analyze it in a mathematical way. Another line of development that we have in the R&D is what we call automation. Actually make all the things that we are currently do and give the users the ability to do manually, and automate these tasks in order to make the work of the user much easier and much faster. So in the automation task, we do have quite a few new exciting capabilities I will discuss in a moment. Integrations based on blended analytics is all about integrating with other IT tools and actually being able to grab all the data from these IT tools and actually put them into one big blender and actually analyze everything and make sure that we are getting the right results. We are going to invest a lot in integrations this year, and coverage is also well known. You will see some new exciting things that we are adding to coverage shortly in this quarter. And the last but not least is our ability to support enterprise level products. On that, we put obviously scalability and the ability to work with multiple users, multiple roles, multiple servers. So this is the idea behind the color coding in our plan. Now let's go to the details. And in the details, we see that we actually have, as I said earlier, 3 releases. The first release is what we call the 5.6. 5.6 release is due by the end of this month, mid of this month. This release is actually all about automatic noise reduction and have the ability to give our customers clustered architecture. I'm going to drill down on the 5.6 specific features in a few seconds. Next release is the 6.0 release. It's coming on mid-year. This is all about automatic insights and use case flows. The ability to give an easy-to-use product with a streamlined UI and interface that will actually help customers to actually take a task from beginning to end, from within the UI, in a very simple and easy-to-use way with the lowest number of clicks that is possible in order to achieve these tasks. In order to do that, we are building some insights engine and having the ability, and we will have the ability to take these insights and actually report them to the customer. The last release that we have is what we call the 6.1. It's planned to the end of this year, and it's all about adding new types and new dimensions of configuration elements and configuration data and configuration changes that we are collecting, and actually be able to support the entire story of us being the center of all change in IT organization. Today, as you all know, we are collecting changes in database schema, tables, indexes, etc. And we do collect all the detailed DLLs, jars, JSPs that changed. In code, what we actually mean, we're actually going to develop new exciting technology of connecting to the actual code that is behind these jars and actually be able to track changes and problems that we see in production to specific lines of code and that were deployed in the latest in the latest upgrade deployments at the customer side. So let's drill down a little bit more into 5.6 and see what actually we are going to get in this new exciting release. So the first thing that we see, the first element that we see is what is called a decision tree-based risk. Decision tree-based risk is actually the ability to calculate the risk of a specific change based on a decision tree of all the dimensions that we have. Dimensions in our language are actually attributes of a change that are actually identify it as, for example, authorized or unauthorized, consistent or inconsistent, being as in a time anomaly, meaning out of the normal time of these type of changes to happen. For example, my organization, in my system, I always see changes that happen during the weekend, but suddenly I see changes happen during the weekdays on Monday. This will trigger the time anomaly. A decision tree based risk is actually a new way of calculating the risk and being more accurate and being able to support more specific flows within the risk calculation tree and make sure that we give the right answer every time. The next one, obviously, once we have the decision tree based risk, we want to have risk-based correlation. Now, risk-based correlation is a very, very interesting concept. I'm not going to drill down a lot into it here, but the idea is simple. The idea is to correlate a specific change risk with the specific blended event risk, and actually make sure that we take only the changes that are affecting this specific risky element, like my APM blended event, and make sure that both of them are correlated. Risk-based correlation is all about calculating the risk curve that each specific change has. So, for example, if I have a code change, it in most cases affects immediately the behavior of my system. So the risk is immediately higher, and then it goes down. So once a piece of code is there for a month or 2 months or 3 months, obviously in many cases it means that it was okay and it's working. So the risk is actually decreasing over time. With capacity changes, the situation is a little bit different. When I'm changing capacity of a specific element or specific, for example, I'm reducing the hard disk or using a lower set of memory on my server, it takes a bit of time until the actual risk is manifesting itself and actually shows that we are able to that there is a problem. I mean, after like a few weeks that I'm working with my system, suddenly I see that I'm out of memory. So these two different behaviors of the risk curves is actually helping us in correlating to the right changes based on specific alerts that we get from the APM side. Another very, very interesting and very helpful capability is the AutoKeys and normalization and being able to do some auto noise reduction. I'm going to drill down on this in 2 slides, so I will leave the details to the slides that I'm going to show there. But mainly, as we all know, when collecting a lot of configuration data from all of my architecture, in many cases, I need to define keys. A key is the ability to actually, I have a node, a master node, then I have a few child nodes underneath it, and all these child nodes actually have the same name. Now I need to define a key in order to identify what is the right node in order to do matching, for example, in comparison. This needed to happen manually in previous releases and cause a lot of time for users to go and manually define these keys. In 5.6, this is actually happening automatically, and we test that on a few customer sites, and it actually brought some very nice results and reduced the needed work on keys to almost zero. Automatic noise reduction, again, since we are collecting all types of changes, we are able to identify things that are noise. For example, in previous releases, we actually marked as noise things that are changing very, very frequently. So if we see a CI that is always changing, it's changing, I don't know, 5 times a day or every day on every week, then we know that in most probably this is noise. What we did in 5.6, we actually were able to go and look on a specific change type, and based on this change type, decide if this is noise or not. For example, when we see a file name that has a date in its name, in most cases, it's noise, or it's something that is not really important to track as a critical change. If we have a folder called logs, we know that files that under this folder are most probably should be regarded as noise and not get a lot of risk. So we are collecting these changes, but we are not giving them a lot of emphasis, a lot of risk associated with it. Integrations, and as you can see, I have an asterisk here on my integrations and coverage blocks, because the asterisks actually mean that this is something that is very dependent on feedback that we are getting from you, our customers, and your needs. So when we see your needs, we are actually going to be able to change this plan and shuffle around what we do first and what we do next based on priorities that we get from you. Our current plan to the 5.6 release is to have CA APM integration to collect all the alerts that are coming from the APM product, and RA integration, which is also known as Nolio. We did the first phase integration that actually just get the deployments and put them in the blended view. Now we are going to do some drill down and actually look at the details of each of these deployments and actually be able to compare what happened from a CI point of view on specific deployment, and be able to compare that to other deployments. Next is coverage, and I'm very, very happy to say that in this release we will have a very long requested capability of being able to track changes in file permissions. File permissions are a very interesting dimension for customers to track. We are able now to track file permissions across all operation systems that we support, Windows, Unix, Linux, and this will actually be very, very helpful to in security kind of flows and in other cases where the file permission is very interesting. We are going to add in Q1 Hadoop and MongoDB, as we see an interest in these new architectures. So we will add our ability to track changes on this as well. And as I said, any other thing or environment that you guys might think that is important to us to cover sooner rather than later, you are just welcome to talk with us later on, and we will do that. Another very, very interesting capability is what we call clustered architecture. Clustered architecture is actually being able to take a few Evolven servers, put them in a cluster, and say, okay, now I have not a single Evolven server, I have like 4 Evolven servers. I want now to support multiple number of hosts, agents, what we call, and I want to be able to have like residual to make sure that these 2 servers or 4 servers are actually making sure that my Evolven service is always up. I'm going to discuss this in the next slide a little bit more, what exactly we did there, how it's working. And last but not least, we saw that a lot from customers. People really ask this, is the ability to go and tag specific changes and CIs and make sure I'm able to attribute my own labels to each CI in order to track them in reports, track them using searches, etc. So this is a new capability in 5.6. 6.0. In the 6.0, what we are actually going to do is add 2 new analytics capabilities. One of them is the ability to identify configuration anomalies. This is a very, very interesting feature. So, and why it's so interesting? If you look at the data Evolven is collecting today, you will see that after a while we have inside the Evolven server all the data on all CIs of the architecture that we are monitoring. Now, what we are able to do, we are able to now automatically identify if a specific change is actually violating the common used configuration in my environment. For example, if I'm monitoring all of my production servers, and I know that in all of my production servers, I have more than, I don't know, 8 gigabytes of memory on each of these hosts, and suddenly someone does a change and changed a specific production host to have like only 4 gigabytes of memory, this is an anomaly. It's a configuration anomaly. There is no problem with 4 gigabytes on a host. That is perfectly legitimate, but in my organization, Evolven will automatically detect that 8 is the right, the automatic policy in my organization. What we will know to do this, we will automatically flag that this is a change that is out of the norm in this specific CI configuration across the organization. So that might give a very powerful capability of automatically identifying things that are changing out of the norm without the need for customers to go and define by themselves the policies that they want to actually track today. So this is another interesting thing that is coming on the 6.0 release. Workload changes. We saw that workload changes are very, very interesting to customers, and actually are very, very indicative on problems that we see at customer sites. So we are going to start tracking and identifying the workload changes. This means that we will be able to identify that the system is becoming more loaded, less loaded, based on all the data that we capture today in Evolven. In the automation of the 6.0 release, we are going to give something that I think is like very, very powerful, actually, to anyone who is using the Evolven system, is to give automatic insight generation and be able to get insights from within the product, in order not to go and start, reviewing yourself the data and actually figuring out what is the problem. Evolven will automatically generate insights that are based on our ability to analyze the data. For example, we will be able to say something like, we see that a specific production host is different than other host configuration in these and that parameters, or a specific deployment was done on all hosts in production, but this differs from disaster recovery systems, etc., etc. So we will give some automatic insights on top of the data that we have today. The rest are some integrations we are doing again with Puppet and HPBSM integration. We have the TIBCO and FIS and core banking integration coverage. It's actually very, very interesting because we see that core banking is becoming like a major player in many banks that are customers, and we are actually going to invest in making sure that we have this system covered in a very, very good way. Last but not least, on the 6.0 release, we are going to give some the use case flows, which is very, very important, some new reporting capabilities, which is very, very exciting to us because we want to create dynamic reports that are will be sent over email with the automatic links to the product itself. So we have a lot of ground to cover there. And we will obviously have the visual update editing, which is something that might, that today is very, very cumbersome and have, we know that it's hard to do. We are going to solve that in our 6.0 release, and it will become an easy task that each customer can do it by himself. At the end of this year, we are going to have the 6.1 release. Before I drill down into the 6.1 release, I actually want to go and jump to some drill down on a specific capabilities that we are adding to the 5.6 release, and then we can go and review the 6.1 capabilities. So Evolven clustered architecture, this is coming in Q1 shortly, and the idea behind it is very simple. You will have the ability to take any number of servers and distribute the tasks that they will do across the architecture. Each of them can have a separate functionality or do all. We will give the ability to share between these servers the cache, obviously, so the system will maintain its state across all servers. This will obviously help redundancy and availability of the Evolven service. Plus, will give, in essence, endless scalability based on the fact that you can add your own new servers. This is a very powerful architecture, and we believe that it will give customers the ability to scale up to any number of hosts and any number of users that they will want to use using Evolven. This is the clustered architecture. The next this is a screenshot from the 5.6 release. As you can see, we have all the blended events. As you can see, we have, for example, here, we have the CA service desk events. These are two events that are coming from the service desk. Underneath it, you can see that in this specific service desk request, we had one automated deployment. On this one, by the way, we see that there was an automated deployment, but we had a few changes happening manually after the deployment, still under the same service request. This is, again, just from looking at this data and this view, we are able to get like very powerful insights and interesting insights. We added like a very cool feature, I think, that is actually helping a lot in analyzing the results. You are able now to change the source of your view. So, for example, if I'm in a comparison view, I'm able now to change the source in one click here, or I can just remove and add again the environments that I'm interested in order to collect the right consistency value and actually to calculate the right consistency. For example, I want to calculate consistency only on my prod systems, and I'm not interested at this specific session in my testing and pre-prod systems. So I can just in a few clicks remove all the testing and pre-prod and see here the consistency of the prod environment only. Next is this is the features that we discussed, the automatic keys, the noise reduction and tagging. So you are able now to be on a specific CI and say, okay, this is a CI that I want to ignore. By clicking this button, that's it, it's ignored. It will obviously go into the ignore list, and then you can go and review that later on. On each of these changes, you can add your own tags here. Each of these tags can be scoped, and you can add tags on a specific element or on all environment, or on all elements that have the name database on or whatever. So these are very interesting capabilities of the noise reduction and tagging. Let me just, so this is the drill down that we did on a few of the shortly coming capabilities. Let's return to the 6.1 release, which is coming at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, we're going to add the code changes and data changes, all the other data types that we are going to collect. We are going to add the ability to do some automatic patch verification. So for example, I'll be able to say something like, I have my Windows update installed on this machine, but I see that a specific DLL out of this Windows update is missing or changed or is not in the right version. So this is a capability that we're going to have at the end of the year. Custom app discovery is something very, very interesting actually. It gives you the ability to automatically get changes on applications you didn't even define as applications that you want to track. We will automatically identify custom applications, discover them, and start reporting changes based on the data that we collect from the entire system. Integrations that are coming at the end of this year are Chef integration, BMC, SVN integration. All these integrations are very, very powerful, and some of them will actually help us in doing these code changes as we discussed earlier. Coverage, we are going to add network devices, storage devices, and obviously continue to work on the newly Elasticsearch and Epic architectures that are out there. And last but not least, we're going to add big data platforms support into the Evolven server itself. We see that more and more as we move forward, the Evolven server is becoming a big data platform, and we will need, in order to give very powerful and very fast results to customers on understanding the data, we'll need to get a big platform-based architecture. So in that, I'm concluding my slides and the things I wanted to say. Al, I'm handing it to you to see questions, and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Eyal. So at this point, I'd ask if you do have a question for Eyal as it relates to the roadmap, please use the question pane as part of the GoToMeeting UI to submit your question. We'll give it a few seconds here while people submit their questions. So there's a quick question as it relates to getting a copy of the slide deck. Yes, we will send that out, but I'll put that as a caveat that just as a reminder, this is an active roadmap and the features and delivery estimates are subject to change. The next question comes in regards to the CMDB. The CMDB was mentioned in the initial slides. What tools are you integrating as it relates to the CMDB?
Okay, so we are actually using HP CMDB, CA CMDB. What we are doing is we've built, and I didn't drill down on this earlier, we've built an architecture that is giving us the ability to integrate very fast with many of the IT tools out there, and CMDB is not different than the others. The one thing that is very, very interesting about our CMDB integrations is our ability to do the matching between the environments that we see in the CMDB and the CIs that we have in Evolven. This is a very important piece of this integration, which is the ability to match and correlate the CMDB elements that we see in the CMDB tools, and then we can actually track the granular changes on these CIs in Evolven.
So a follow-up, excuse me, a follow-up question on that is the CMDB integration bi-directional?
The CMDB integration in the first phase is one direction. It's from CMDB into Evolven. And the next phase of the CMDB integration is for Evolven to enrich the CMDB database. We know that CMDB databases tend to be updated less frequent than the Evolven CIs. So what we are planning to have is to have the ability to update the CMDB database and enrich it with the CIs and changes that we collect inside Evolven. So yes, the answer is yes, we are going to have two-side integration in phases. First phase, one direction from Evolven, from CMDB to Evolven, and the other phase from Evolven to the CMDB.
Excellent. Next question. There seems to be several integrations with CA products. Are there any plans to support the CA application lifecycle conductor?
At this point, we are not planning to have this integration. Again, most of these integrations are customer-driven, as I said earlier. So if we'll see that there is a need for that, we will obviously can shuffle our plans and do it. At this point, as you can see in this plan, we do not have a plan to do this this year.
Okay. Just one further note, if you do have any further questions, please submit those questions via the question pane. So I see an additional question here. Let me just see if I can make it out. If application functionality can be integrated with Evolven for changes.
Application functionality. Sorry, I'm not sure what is application functionality. If we are talking about the way application actually behaves from an SLA point of view, then the answer is obviously yes. So what we, for example, and I hope that I'm referring and answering the question here, but in the when we are doing, for example, integration with the APM tools of CI APM tool, then one of the things that it tracks the transaction response times of services across the enterprise. Now, in this integration, based on this integration, we are able to track the changes in the the transaction behavior and actually correlate that to changes inside Evolven. I hope that that was the question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a follow-on as it relates to, I guess we answered the question. So thank you for that. Next question, what will we be monitoring for network and storage devices? Will we also be able to detect SAN failures and network outages?
Not at the first phase. The first phase is actually detecting and looking at the network devices and storage devices configuration. This is where we always start, and the network devices are no different than that. We will be able to track all these network devices, and once we will have the integration with a network monitoring tool, it will do the actual monitoring of, for example, lost packets or whatever. We will be able to see this as a blended event inside Evolven and correlate changes in network devices to this specific alert that we see from the network monitoring tool. Evolven is not a network monitoring tool per se, and we are not planning to become one.
Excellent. If you have a further question, please submit it via the question pane. Okay. I am showing no further questions at this time. At the close of today's session, we will also have a brief survey that we'd ask you to kindly provide your feedback. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone today for taking the time out of their schedules to participate in the session. Have a great day and a great week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.